Hi, everybody. Excuse any background noise, please. My neighbor is currently cutting the grass, but it's Emily with Mindful Matters with Emily with another video for ya. Yeah, that just happened. Okay, whatever. So this week's content, I do have to warn you, is gonna definitely trigger some people. So I just want to put that out there because I have been called to share about my pregnancy loss, my first pregnancy loss ever. When I went to school, we were, taught sexual education, and I thought, well, I'm just going to get pregnant, aren't I? If I even touch a man. Well, yeah, no. Apparently, unfortunately, pregnancy loss is super common, but it's also very stigmatized. I mean, you just don't talk about it that much. And I really wanted to share my story because when I started this journey and I kind of started looking into why do I hold myself back? Why do I not make content even though I know it's helpful for people? Why do I stop? Oh, because I'm comparing myself to other people. Well, let's look back. Why am I comparing myself to other people? And we kind of go back and, okay, well, there's also a shame associated with being seen. So through this entire situation, I had a huge wound open that I didn't even realize still existed. And it's funny because I do therapy. Well, I'm down to once a month. I was once a week for 5 years, and then every 2 weeks for a year. And we're getting to the point where I'm okay with just seeing my therapist once a month, which is huge. But, we were talking the other day, and the night before I had a pretty bad reaction that I hadn't had for a long time. I do have complex PTSD, so my emotions can get triggered. And talking about this shame and all this comparison stuff just brought up this event that I guess I'd never fully processed. And so I wanted to share it because I was talking to my therapist about it yesterday. And there's so much shame associated with pregnancy loss, and we don't talk about it. And it's a lot of self-imposed shame. And it's a feeling of almost self-blame. And then it can also spring into a feeling of self-hatred. Because let me kind of go through my scenario, and then I'll get into what I'm talking about as to how it can affect women. I'm not saying it can't affect men as well, but I'm just talking from my perspective. So I do just want to say that. And again, anything I share is from my perspective. I know there are tons of views out there, but this is just how I personally feel about it. So I believe it was around 2005, 2006 it had to be 2006. I got pregnant with my first child. I was married at the time. And I remember being we were not trying, but we weren't actually trying. So I remember just being so shocked and oh my gosh, and scared, excited, and just so many emotions. It's holy crap, what's coming? What is this even gonna be? And being just holy cow, we were having a kid, and I didn't know something yet that I'm gonna add on, but it was exciting because also I feel it was gonna be, I remember this being the first grandkid for my mom and my dad and my husband at the time's parents as well. And so it was just a really, really exciting time. And I lived in Florida at the time. So I was kind of far away from family, which was tough. That was a tough thing. So I found out I was pregnant, went to my first appointment, told my mom. My sister called me. She's like, thanks for spoiling my news. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I'm pregnant too. And I was like, shut up. Well, we ended up having the same due date. which at the time I was like, this is going to be awesome. Like my sister and I are both having babies like on the same day almost. It was crazy. It was one of those situations. Well, and I may get a little emotional here, but unfortunately, this was in June, I remember. It was June of 2006. I went in for my 11-week appointment. And at that time, they got the little thingy out to like hear the baby's heartbeat. And unfortunately, I was by myself for this appointment because my family lived far away. And my husband at the time was taking classes at college, and they were during the time when I had to go in for this appointment. So I was at this doctor's office all by myself, and I had to wait a while. I feel like I waited there for an hour, and they took me back to do like the routine stuff. And then they took the little monitor out to find the heartbeat, and they were like, well, we can't find it with this little machine. Nothing to worry about. You got to go. We're going to do an ultrasound though. So we want you to go, back out into the waiting room. So I remember going out, and the time is really a blur. I remember at some point letting my ex-husband know, like, I have to get an ultrasound. They tried to find a heartbeat and couldn't. So I had to wait another like hour, which was grueling, and went back, did the actual ultrasound where you could see, and it had turned out that the baby had stopped growing at 9 weeks. So I had miscarried. I didn't know. My body still thought I was pregnant, which was really hard to comprehend. And yeah, I'm definitely getting emotional, which is fine. Yeah, we had to get surgery to have it removed, because my body didn't naturally do it, and I personally wasn't comfortable with taking medication to have my body naturally do it. I didn't think I could handle it. So, wow. I'm not surprised about this. It's really sad. My surgery went badly. I had the surgery and I was fine. And then a few days later, I got a fever, and I had some things happening to my body that weren't normal. So I went to the doctor, and they were like, oh, you're fine. You're just naturally healing. Everything's fine. That night, I woke up and had some extremely unnatural things happen to my body that I'm not going to detail. And I went to the emergency room, and it had turned out that the doctor who had done the initial surgery had missed some pieces, and I had to get another surgery, which was awful. So, went through that. It was incredibly difficult to be around other pregnant women. And wow. Sorry. I just felt so inadequate. Like, why couldn't my body do what their body was doing? So there was that. And I was surrounded by pregnant women at the time. I had, my sister who ended up carrying full term. And there was another girl at the place I worked that was also pregnant and carried full term. And it was really difficult to be alone and not have a lot of support. And I was expected, and this is by no means any attack on anybody, but I felt from not all of my family, but some of them, and I was expected to essentially just get over it and, you know, be happy for my sister. And I tried. I really tried. But it was very hard. And I don't know that the family members realized that they were essentially invalidating my experience. And it was a hard situation for everybody. So not only was I feeling guilty because it was so hard for me to be happy for my sister and this woman at school and anybody else I saw that was carrying a baby. It was incredibly difficult for me to be okay, but I was also guilty because I felt like I shouldn't feel the way that I was feeling. And then also at the same time, there's another layer of shame because people will say things to you like that make you feel like it was your fault that this happened when, you know, you look at the research regarding miscarriages and they're really not that uncommon. So, people would, you know, specifically not, again, when I say family members, I'm not necessarily referring to family members on either side. This is just in general. Would say things like, well, were you eating this? What did you do? Did you do this? Did you make sure you did this? And it was like this list of things that I could have possibly done wrong. And it felt like, what is wrong with you? There's something wrong with you because this miscarriage happened. Instead of the fact that it could have possibly just been something natural. And even if there was something wrong with me, to push that aggressive blame on somebody who is going through such an incredible loss. It was, I never realized, I knew how hard it was when I was going through it, but I never realized until recently how much this situation affected me. And so, I ended up having 3 other miscarriages before I had my first child. And I guess I just want to share this so that I know there are other women going through this. And I know you feel like it's your fault, but it's not your fault that you are having trouble trying to conceive, unless you are actively doing something purposefully to keep yourself from doing that. You know, don't feel like you are to blame because you're not the only one involved in the situation, number one. And number two, that shame you feel, like it almost makes you feel like inadequate. Like, well, why isn't my body doing what this other person's body is doing? There's nothing wrong with you. You are experiencing something that is a natural experience. It's devastating. So don't try to cover it up if you have an early pregnancy loss, especially. You're going to grieve even if you just found out you were pregnant and the next day you start having symptoms of miscarriage. It's normal for you to grieve because you had so much hope when you saw that little positive test. So don't allow yourself to stuff that grieving away. That would be another tip I would give. And, you know, the only people who can figure out what's going on are going to be your doctors. So if you have people talking in your ear, you need to set some boundaries and be firm in those boundaries and telling them what you're saying to me is not helpful, and I would not like to talk to you about this anymore. I wish I would have done that, because I think I could have saved myself a lot of trauma and a lot of pain and hurt, that because those people talking in my ear, and it's just like we do with people who end up staying pregnant and we're trying to give them advice. You don't want the advice, let somebody know. I want you guys to know that I love you, and if anybody ever wants to talk to me about pregnancy loss, I would love to talk to you, because it's a traumatizing, it is a devastating experience that not enough people discuss. And I think that healing can happen easier, quicker, and in a more validating way if we talk about this. So thanks for letting me be vulnerable.